Food versus supplements. No contest, surely. So before we begin, it's probably a good time to refer to the definition of a supplement. So a supplement is something that when added to something else completes or enhances it. So obviously the critical words here being added to and enhance. So supplements are added to the diet in an effort to address potential deficiencies or provide more practical alternatives. On the other hand, and fairly obviously, food is a nutritious substance that people eat or drink in order to maintain life and maintain growth. So food is obviously the foundation, and supplements are the added sauce or the added sprinkle on top. So by that logic, it's fairly obvious that in most cases, opting to consume food rather than supplements would be recommended. However, supplements do offer the advantage of being potentially more practical. They generally provide large dosages of single nutrients that help to address certain deficiencies, or they provide specific solutions, and they're generally absorbed more rapidly, potentially even more bioavailable, owing to the lack of other nutrients to slow things down. That's not to say that food can't do all of the above. It can, and it offers the undisputable benefit of providing greater nutrient density. So in regards to performance and recovery, there have been a handful of studies that compared food and refined, whole foods to both supplements and then refined foods. So in the next couple of slides, I'll talk through them. So in this particular example, the researchers compared the effects of fast food, which was actually a collection of food items from the local McDonald's, and they compared the impact of the fast food meal to a normal off-the-shelf sports supplement. So the researchers gave participants either the fast food meal or the sports supplement immediately after exercise, which consisted of a 90-minute cycling bout. And they looked at the rates of synthesis in the 4-hour recovery period. So as you'll see, there was no significant difference between the fast food meal and the sports supplement across the 4-hour recovery period, potentially even favouring the fast food meal, despite the fact that both the fast food meal and the sports supplement were matched for calories, and so they were isoenergetic, and they were matched for macronutrients as well. From a physiological standpoint, there was no significant difference in glucose or insulin response to either condition. So this study obviously clearly demonstrates the power of food in relation to recovery. So I've actually been known to order Nando's and other fast food options to airports or to changing rooms after games. But I do have some reservations about the use of certain fast foods, to be honest. So in my experiences, as players, particularly football players or soccer players, have become more health conscious in recent years and more aware of dietary fads, I've noticed that they generally prefer healthier options, and in many cases they'll opt to not eat over consuming fast food options. So if all they're offered is McDonald's, for example, certain individuals, given the fact that they're now exposed to more health messages within the media, they'll generally opt to not eat anything at all, which is obviously not an ideal situation. The promotion of fast foods can also detract from the overall education piece within a club, and it may even lead to confusion. So that can obviously be an issue as well. So I generally try to recreate healthier, or at least meals that appear to be healthier versions of the fast food meals. So with the assistance of a performance chef, I develop menus that provide kind of fast finger type foods that kind of suit the tastes of the players, but they generally look fairly healthy. So like a burger could be a McDonald's burger. You could kind of recreate that in a relatively healthy way, like instead of like a fairly processed beef patty, you could use like a turkey patty or something like that. So it just appears healthier in some ways. Sushi has actually proven a big hit in the changing rooms of late, and it meets all of the aforementioned nutritional requirements. So that's obviously been a fairly big hit, and the performance chefs do a good job of creating some pretty good sushi. So when looking at endurance performance, there's been another piece of research a few years back that compared the effects of raisins, so a whole food carbohydrate source, versus a sports supplement. So they compared the effects of raisins versus energy chews on performance during an 18-minute, during the time trial. So participants completed 80 minutes at 75% VO2 max, and then followed by a 5-kilometer time trial. Interestingly, when participants consumed either the raisins or the energy chews, there was no difference in time trial performance or gastrointestinal discomfort. So that basically just shows that utilizing whole foods or fruits within your fueling strategy could be, or could and should be, a legitimate consideration. I'll go on to talk about the use of bananas as well in a later presentation. But in this example, raisins have shown to be just as effective as energy chews in relation to improvement of time trial performance. When looking at rates of muscle protein synthesis, there's also some potential benefit of whole foods versus refined foods or even supplements. So it was recently shown that the consumption of whole eggs resulted in a greater stimulation of muscle protein synthesis than isonitrogenous egg whites. So the author of that paper stated that their work points to the concept that dietary protein may show differential anabolic properties on skeletal muscle when consumed within its natural whole food matrix. So they went on to suggest that the presence of other nutritional constituents within the whole foods may support anabolic processes. So they are microRNAs, which are coding molecules that regulate gene transcription, or potentially even the vitamin, mineral, or fat content. So those various factors and nutritional constituents might lead or might support the anabolic process that resulted in whole eggs, resulting in a greater stimulation of muscle protein synthesis than the refined egg whites. Interestingly, a paper back in 2008 showed similar results, in that even when protein was matched, whole milk resulted in a greater net protein balance than skimmed milk. Again, that basically just supports the conclusions of the aforementioned papers and highlighting the benefit of whole food consumption as opposed to refined food consumption. As I mentioned right at the beginning, though, there are certain circumstances where supplements will be more useful or more beneficial than foods. So supplements obviously offer the benefit of being slightly more practical. So obviously a whey protein shake, the powder could be kept in a small bag or in a shaker and taken directly to the gym or taken directly to practice and consumed immediately after practice. Not that protein needs to be consumed immediately after practice, but it can be a more practical alternative. Whereas in certain circumstances you might have to wait. If you wanted to consume a whole food meal, you might have to wait to access a kitchen, for example. So obviously supplements do provide the benefits of being more practical. Generally supplements are digested slightly faster. Again, because there are no other nutrients within them generally to slow things down. And the bioavailability of certain supplements is greater than its food counterpart. So when you look at folic acid, for example, so folic acid is the supplemental form of vitamin B9, and it actually shows greater bioavailability than the naturally occurring form of folate. So the naturally occurring form of B9 is folate, but folic acid, which is the supplemental form, actually shows greater bioavailability. So obviously there are some circumstances where supplements will outweigh the whole food counterparts, but on the whole, Food first should always be and will always be the best approach.